Welcome back, friends. We will continue to play our video after the session. Let me start by introducing our esteemed panelists for the day. We have with us Mr. Abbas Gabajiwala. Abbas is the founder and CEO of Blix Education and former CTO and head of design at Zephyr Toy Makers, where his product innovations won multiple national awards, including the Make in India Award twice. A mechanical engineer with an MBA from Singapore, he is also an alumnus of Stanford University's SEED program. He has trained over 50,000 students and hundreds of teachers in STEM and robotics, and has conducted sessions across leading institutions, including the National Institute of Design. As a Shark Tank India entrepreneur, he secured a deal from 2 sharks and attracted offers from the entire Shark Tank panel. Abbas specializes in creativity, cognition, critical thinking development in children, and has dedicated his work to designing impactful STEM products, hands-on curricula, and transformative learning experiences that help young learners build strong problem-solving and innovative skills. Welcome, Abbas, to the panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Our second esteemed panelist is Mr. Samir Karulkar. We'll have his CV on the screen shortly. Samir has 25 years of leadership experience across cross-border mergers and acquisitions, M&A, private equity, full-cycle venture capital, investment banking, corporate strategy, and managing joint ventures. He leads Coverpage Ventures, advising companies, family businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, and building ventures for select startups. Previously, he headed multi-stage investment portfolio at Bennett and Coleman Times Group, managing over 400 plus companies and delivering USD 300 million in exits. Earlier, he led cross-border M&A and private equity at SBI Capital Markets across 20 countries, advising clients such as HCL Tech, Wipro, Tokyo Camlin, Imami, E-Trade, and the Government of India. He began his career with Mahindra Group and later worked with Haribhakti Group in corporate finance. A certified independent director with an MBA and BE. Samir is based in Mumbai and mentors founders globally. Welcome, Samir, to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll introduce our third panelist, Aarti, who's not in the room currently but on her way. Has been stuck up in the Mumbai traffic woes, and hopefully she'll join us soon. Aarti Parigi leads Newton Auto, a next generation EV company focused on sustainable mobility in India. With a foundation in architectural engineering, she brings strong expertise in design thinking, systems planning, and sustainable urban development to shape Newton's EV strategy and product roadmap. Aarti is co-founder and sustainability strategist at Newton. She oversees business development, strategic partnership, fundraising, policy engagement while strengthening Newton's manufacturing ecosystems through lean processes and operational efficiency. Aarti also collaborates with academia, think tanks, and industry forums to advocate for clean mobility, inclusive design, and future-ready public transport systems. I'm also aware, being a personal friend of Aarti, that Government of India and especially the automobile sector associations have consulted Aarti and Newton for many EV initiatives, and they have been like guides and mentors to the ministry as well. Guiding a focused and agile team, she champions a collaborative culture that enables Newton to deliver impactful mobility solutions aligned with India's Viksit Bharat vision. So with this introduction of our panelists today, I will hand over the session to colleague partner Disha Shah to take it forward from here. Over to you, Disha.
So, hi and good evening, Anand and everyone. Today we are here with a warm welcome provided by Kusaipa sir. We'll move on to our first panelist. In today's world, we are looking at a lot of talks about smart manufacturing using the AI and analytics in the manufacturing. So over to you, Abbas, to speak on the topic.
Thank you so much, Disha. Thank you so much, Gabajiwala, for the great introduction. My name is Abbas. I'm a 4th generation toy maker. So toy making has been going on since my great grandfather's time. And I remember when I was about 5, 6 years old, also after school, I would come to my father's workshop, and he would put me on an assembly line, where I had to start packing some toys. So since that time, I have been involved in manufacturing of toys. Eventually, so I joined my father's business in 2011. Eventually, started my own company in 2021. Again, related to toys completely. I mean, we do learning toys for kids. So when we had started our own product, it actually started off as a brand, and there's this huge contradiction between a brand and a manufacturing facility, right? So generally, you choose if you want to be a brand, you kind of outsource manufacturing. If you want to get into manufacturing, you start manufacturing for others. So that's a smart thing to do, which we are not into actually. So it's a challenge, but because of this, we've had a lot of experience of how do you get down to doing real good manufacturing. And I believe that apart from just being a brand, which is a differentiator, manufacturing is also a very unique differentiator in any industry. If you see in cosmetics, there are 1,000 brands, but there must be about 10 manufacturers who kind of manufacture for everybody. So manufacturing is a unique advantage because you can actually be the person who's selling the shovels in a gold rush, right? So I look at it like that. Even in the toy industry recently, our Prime Minister also has really promoted toys as an industry to grow. So there have been a lot of toy manufacturers who have come in and trying to build similar toys, competing with each other. But there have been a few other manufacturing companies who have come in, trying to take advantage of this surge of toy manufacturing companies. So one example is in the electronic space. I know one or two companies that have come into electronics manufacturing and focused on toy companies. So they've kind of captured an entire industry and built an entire industry of electronics and everything for toys, especially. How I look at it in India, especially in manufacturing, there's parallel industries running. So there is an industry when you're looking for budget manufacturing and extremely low cost. There's an entire industry that caters to that. And then if you're looking for decent quality, and a particular amount of precision, there's an entire type of tool makers, type of molders, type of printers who kind of cater to that application, the middle tier, this thing. And then if you're in the business of wanting very high precision, high quality products, there's another industry of manufacturers who cater to those requirements. I look at manufacturing very much like that you have to be very clear about what industry you are kind of going to cater, right? And so if you're a manufacturing company, you look for brands who are looking, you decide on your facility by identifying what kind of brands you want to work with. And I think there's a massive space for each. I have always preferred the quality space because in India, if you're going on the price space, it's very often a race to the bottom, and it's a tough space to be able to build any sort of leveraging because the market is, I think 90% of the market in India is catering to the price competitiveness. If you are now decided on what kind of industry that you want to cater as a manufacturer, as a manufacturing facility, you look at implementing IoT and robotics and AI accordingly. Because just because tools are available, they don't fit in every place. So which tool to apply, it really comes down from the application purpose. So more than the tools, I think what is really important is what is the objective that we want to meet, right? And from that objective, you can start identifying machinery, because even in our manufacturing setup, when we are looking at increasing, going from, when we are looking at our own perspective in our own company also, there's a huge cost benefit analysis that we undertake every time we want to take an capital investment into machinery or into robotics or into automation that we take, because those are all capital intensive activities. So having the right objective having the right application and the cost benefit analysis is very important. So one of the companies that I want to talk about over here is I remember visiting DOMS as a facility, right? It is run by Mr. Santosh. Santosh Bhai was very kind enough to show me around his premise, and I remember there were multiple product lines, and and there's different levels of automation for each. So there are science into how much automation is needed for what product category is, I think, their secret of success, right? And that philosophy kind of stays with me very well in terms of this thing. When we also started manufacturing, I knew that AI is going to be a big part of our manufacturing process. We didn't know where to implement it just yet, but we knew one thing, that for any AI to work, data was really important. So one major criteria and important thing for us was that we'll start recording as much data as possible. Whether it's going to be useful for us today, whether it's going to be useful for us tomorrow or 1 month or 10 years later, we wanted to record data. So every single process, it might be as small as having a screw going into something, right? Is measured, monitored. How long does it take consistently via different types of people to know what our benchmark should be, what our expectations could be, and how we should do it. So all of this data, in terms of time and motion studies, in terms of rejection percentages, in terms of to process to output, which process to do for what type of output, is something that we have started measuring. So I'm going to give a lot of examples of my company because that's what we are doing, right? So this was really important for us in that sense. Second thing, in today's world, there used to be a time when there was Ford making Model Ts, and they were absolute standardization. So they said, we make cars, we will give you a car in your color as long as what you want is black, because black takes much lesser time to dry and things like that. But everything was absolutely standardized, and the objective was to get the price as low as possible, efficiency as high as possible. But today, recently, in a couple of years ago, I'd gone to the BMW factory in Germany, and over there, standardization is important because it keeps costs low. But they had a facility where if you go in a BMW showroom, you can choose the color that you want, you can choose the interior color that you want, you can choose the electronic features that you want, and all of that they will customize a car and give it to you. And it was amazing to see that how do the company that large, which makes thousands of cars in a day from their plant, how do they do? And their machinery is designed like that. The entire car's input is given to a machine, and the machine decides what happens. And the tooling, the paint shop will immediately, after some time, clear it out, bring a new paint, do it, and then it clears out and then goes back to its regular paint. And it happens so fast, it's almost like it's mass manufacturing on demand, on specialty, on customized demand. And so, their objective was very clear, that we want something that's scalable, that grows rapidly, and that handles customization very, very well. That all of this, in terms of technology and all manufacturing, again, the reason I say that application is really important, and we have to be very particular about cost benefit analysis, because today manufacturing technology is just changing extremely rapidly. So if you look at a printing press, for example, there's a new machine that gives better output coming out every 5 years. But these machines have lives of 40 years, 40, 50 years, and they are extremely expensive machinery. So if you have a particular type of a customer and you're going to buy machinery for that, you have to understand that you have to take, like I went to one particular printer and I told him that, I have this much and things like this. He's like, I'll do it very cheap. I'm like, but your machinery is so expensive. He's like, my machinery is very expensive, but it gives output like like crazy. Like my entire printing press my entire printing requirement for an entire month of a particular product might take the machine barely 20 minutes to give an output of. So when I realized that, we realize, okay, these industries are something that, we have to understand how to get into, because you need to be able to feed in that sort of machine, that sort of work also. over there. Again, that was based on application. And the last thing that I want to add when we look at wanting to improve and upgrade our facility, right, is that every time you're going to automate a process, you're going to have people who are going to lose their jobs because of that. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. If you are a very large company, if you're in HUL growing about 5% year on year or 10%, and actually HUL is doing very well also, but if you're a very large with very consistent demand that you're kind of fulfilling, that is going to be a trade-off. You can't run away from that. But how we look at it as a startup, our company grows quite fast. So we have this vision that if I have, say, 100 people working in my plant today, I don't want to increase that 100. I want to keep those 100 people. And I want to kind of grow my manufacturing capacity by 50% year on year. So how we start using automation and robotics and all to kind of fulfill those two requirements. That being said, if we are looking for people who can actually grow, they might join in our company today as people who have to count 10 pieces, put in a packet, and that's their job. But eventually we want them to kind of run the machine that will do that for them. So when we hire also today, we look at whether this person has a skill set to be able to do that. Because otherwise, eventually that you have an innate ability to be able to do certain things which makes you capable of upskilling as well. That's how I look at it at least. Because we might not have the industry large company capability of upskilling which they might have, but that's my experience. So when we hire, we do very basic things. We tell them, we'll give them probably 565 pieces of something and we'll tell them count this, or we will tell them, see, this is how you do this. We'll show them a demo 5 times and tell them now make 20 pieces. And after that kind of a test, they give us an answer. Like suppose they're supposed to be 565 and they tell us that there are 565 pieces. We tell them, there are supposed to be 572. And depending on the confidence of that other person, we know whether they've done it in a particular way. So actually, for a company like mine, I mean, Samir Bhai might be able to give insight in a very, very different way on a very large scale. But for a company like us, for me at least, I am very particular about my manufacturing. So I'm many times in my factory, I'm still sitting on the shop floor trying to analyze what the person to my right is doing, trying to analyze what the person on my left is doing, and figure out whether things are right. So I have a production manager and I have a supervisor and everything, but I have to do that because I've seen Santosh Bhai from DOMS also do that. I know, that's a 2,000 plus crore business. So and I asked also the guy over there, that अगर तुम्हारे machine breakdown होता है तो किसको ultimately मालूम है इसको fix कैसा करना. So he's like, I know all of this, but Santosh Bhai comes whenever there's it. So I'm giving the example because it was at that point that I realized, okay, I still have to do this. I mean, I'll always have to do it. And it's something that stays with me. So manufacturing is not easy. It's not at all easy. It's a struggle that continues throughout at different scales. It's a very hands-on process. And so even when I look for a production manager, my first thing is you have to sit on the line. Are you going to be able to sit on the line? And you'll have to do that probably for days ahead. Are you going to be able to do that? And that is my requirement for anybody in a production facility. That you're going to have to do everything. Because however big you become, however senior you become, setting up a line is always a science which eventually, till the top, it has to go and it will always go. That's fundamentally what I would like to share from my experience, at least in this space. When the question answers from you come, I think I'll be able to share a lot more.
Very insightful.
Very insightful. So thank you so much, Abbas, for such an insightful, detailed journey of the manufacturing side of a company. I think essentially, yes, there are a lot of tools available in the market. Yes, there is a lot of rapid changes happening on the machinery and on the automation side. But what you've brought to the table is that it may be very fascinating, to add those tools to your manufacturing utility. But what you really need to understand is how are your dynamics working and what tools will actually help you increase the efficiency of the manufacturing. I think which becomes the bottom line. So yes, smart manufacturing is no longer a distant vision. It is happening today. We have to adapt to it today. But having said that, we need to be prepared for it from today by collecting the live data of what is happening, what is your efficiency, and then working towards implementation of tools which will help you reduce your downtime, which will help you give customization to your products on real time basis. So that's a very insightful details that you've shared with us. And with this, we'll like to move on to our second panelist, Mr. Sameer. So, Sameer, we would like to understand from you on how smart and sustainability manufacturing is looked at from the board's point of view. How do investors, what is our investors' perspective and trust on a company which is working towards sustainable and smart manufacturing? So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nisha. So I'll cover maybe 5 or 6 parts to this point. And sustainability as a word, you might have heard in different forms in the last 10 years. So probably I think when it was introduced, my memory tells me it's like risk, climate risk. So everyone talked about it as a risk. I think the journey last 10 years, in my view, has moved from being a risk driver to nice to have. Okay, then some people are saying, oh, urgent compliance bill. Okay, maybe some people are starting to see value creation. So it's still WIP, but I think ESG sustainability was talk. Then it moved to saying, not for me, abhi nahi, not my priority. But I dare say today, I don't think anyone in the room today, anywhere in the world, would want to be saying, I don't believe in it, I don't stand for it. So fundamentally, that shift definitely has happened. COVID may have additionally played a role in terms of prioritizing for people, for corporates, for preferences, investors also around with it. Find anyone, they may not know, but ask anyone around, do you stand for governance? Do you stand for society? Do you stand and are you concerned? Are you working about ESG? Everyone will say yes. Okay, saying yes is today achieved. So that's one shift I would say as trend. But it's still a compliance perspective, is my observation at a broader scale. But at least I would say progress, because from not doing anything to doing, at least because it's mandatory for some, it's compliance for some, something is flowing. And that's, I think, is useful as you widen the acceptability, usage, everyone. So it's spreading. So that's the first part of looking at. Coming from also a consumer background, I think all of us do things when you are habituated. So habit formation also needs its cycle. And I think sustainability, for it to get percolated to each one of us, it needs to become a habit. So the first point I'm saying is the trend from how it was in the past to now, moving into an era probably where people are now getting used to it without realizing they are sustainably doing something yet, but they're doing it. Maybe because my CFO asked, maybe because it's an audit asked, maybe it is a compliance need, maybe somebody needs to do, or maybe unfortunately some people got penalized for not doing. It's become a part of entity around it. So that's the first part. We're talking about manufacturing, and you are here. Your father would definitely have used Toyota production system as use, okay, of the 90s. In the 90s, there used to be a Japanese, there are many Japanese such techniques. 5S is something that I believe in, I have been trained in,
in the 90s. And I see so much of what we call today as sustainability in my version linked to it. And I'll probably just talk about why I feel it's so simple. No need of complicating life. And what does 5S? There are obviously waste, efficiency, productivity. So there are 5 words in Japanese which have been used to create it, whether it is Siri, Seto, Shitsuke, Seiketsu, all of this. So all of these are ways of looking at improving your work. The word Shitsuke in that actually is sustain in Japanese, even in that. And simply at your own desk, what you do is you want to prioritize, so you declutter first. You create and sort things. Whatever is useful, you shine. In the case of yours, machines. You want the machines to be productive. You take care of it. Okay. Now the question is, you keep on doing this, it becomes a habit. You have works, you have portfolio. So earlier they used to call value-added activities and non-value-added activities. I think over the complications that we've gone through last 35 years in industry, evolution and needs, today it's percolating back in one form or the other. And I think we are doing activities which should go back to workflow. So for me, workflow is nothing to do with IT. Every company has a process with a workflow. So I think manufacturing companies, if we look at it, waste reduction happens in every organization, manufacturing or otherwise, but let's talk about manufacturing. How do you take care of waste? First, you identify what's there and not there. Source of the waste, handling of the waste. That's one element also of ESG coming around. Energy efficiency, today we talk about it. Energy efficiency is also a space and material design usage. Space is also wasted, not counted. I need for future. This works better. Is it in the workflow is not question. There's no point about automation being right where it should be applied. I'm just adding on from that lens towards that. Eco-friendly products. Have you heard of all of us have heard about this? Okay, how many of us have shifted with packaging to think about it like that? Okay, Amazon gives big boxes, but inside that there is a small pen. And it's waste. Is somebody taking care? Does it want to look at it? Should it be looked upon it? These are board members asking questions. And I think that's where the role of board also comes in, is to asking questions about such things, about the company's workflow, in which there could always be inefficiencies, waste, not just the physical waste. And I think thinking about that itself is the first way of looking at it. Take it also from the societal side. Aren't we worried about our employees, our workers around with it? A clean workspace will please not improve the morale. Will they not be hygienic anyways? Lighting itself around with it. Cleanliness, of course, mandatory, but mandatory is not necessarily followed always around it. So I think culture, sustainability comes also from some of these things, which for me relates back to the old way of doing things where tech was not there. It was physical on ground, but we had processes around it. I think tech just makes this much more wider, easier, maybe less costlier, definitely faster. I think, but it not leads to the thinking. So I'm glad when you say you go to the manufacturing factory yourself, looking at what the next person is doing, because only you can spot it. The person's job is not to spot it. Because you've hired that person to do that, you have time today to think about this. So kudos to you as a management for doing your job of hiring the talent needed for the job and freeing yourself to do what only you can. So that's progressiveness. I look at it in a way to allow you to think. I think that's what I see as investors, is as founders, as companies. How are they thinking about their business around it? So if you talk about all of that, then one is capital allocation. Okay, all talk. Okay, pick 2 parts to capital allocation. One is public markets, one is private markets. So you've heard about ESG as a word. There are also ways in which mutual funds, there are ESG compliant funds, ESG investments, ESG indexes. These are all newer developments last 8-9 years where people are doing some. So if I have to talk about volume, okay, so probably Indian mutual fund industry would be roughly about 88 lakh crores AUM across 45 AMCs. ESG compliant funds, maybe earlier this year, number maybe a couple of months old, would be about 11,000 crores, which is roughly 0.13%. 10 funds do ESG funds. Is anyone mandated them to do? They have themselves chosen. So it's self-driven ways in which some funds have launched schemes where their goal is to only invest in ESG compliant companies. That's their thinking. They want to start channeling it around. Now, over a period of time, there will be a benchmark. What kind of returns give? Because you put your money in mutual fund, I put your money in mutual fund. Did you ask them that only my money should go only to ESG funds? You probably did. That's why it got allocated there. Okay, I did not. I put it in a general fund. So it's got everywhere. So you are starting also with an intent. And I think that's also the change in the market. People, you and me, are more little aware, more probably want to be responsible, want to do something good. Now there are instruments available around. Okay? Is that something which is a happy situation right now? I wouldn't say. It's far from it. We've started. I think it's difficult to ask. People are not yet demanding, I need everything around investors. But there are policies. So I think framework, policies, and regulations. These three play an important role in any industry's transformation. We're not talking about incremental innovation, we're talking about transformation. And I think the impetus that I see is macro to micro, always. India is committed to net zero by 2070. From the country it is started. Regulations are driving it. Who drives regulations in investment? SEBI, RBI. They are not just telling please do. They are telling and creating standards. Why standards? To your point, A, it becomes understood in the same way by everyone. Otherwise, what happened last 10 years is everyone is making nice presentations and PowerPoint slides about how they are ESG compliant, which is a checkbox. Now, if everyone is in a way saying checkbox, I as an investor, so SEBI and RBI is saying, enough of your camouflage, start disclosing, but I'm creating a standard. There is a global benchmark. Then some Indian companies will come back. It's different, right? So we mustn't just borrow blindly from international standards. We still are dependent on coal for our generation. We're still moving in that direction. So, but we must still have it. And I think this framework coming into place, also a part of BRSR, also a part of audit. People are saying, okay, you do it, let an auditor certify it. Second is certify and display for disseminating information. And what does disseminating information mean is transparency. I think 3 years back, Accenture Worldwide did a study of transparency. Okay, not a great thing what I'm going to say, but European companies had about 35% transparency metric from the sample that they covered. Australasia was the next at about 28%, more or less. USA was 24%. India was somewhere around 60%. And transparency is nothing to do with dealing of governance and everything. It's willingness to share my data to the world. I think we've come from a situation where my data I have to protect. I may not use it myself. Whereas now with the world is, if you start disclosing it, it allows also people to know what you're doing it. That's one way. The board way of looking at it is, if you're promising something to a world at large, you are holding yourself accountable for it. You're going towards a vision so that you're committed towards it. And an interpretation that investors now learn to make differences around. So transparency is it. And to help, I think, adoption, as always, we start with big 1,000 companies, listed companies, let them first start, then the next 500. I think this process has started. Okay? The good part is regulators today are far leading the show than lagging worldwide. So that's just like governments are doing. So I think from that point of view, SEBI is also coming up, has come up, I think, with principles. What does sustainability mean? Because we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about manufacturing, you think you want sustainability. So they're breaking it down by chapters. Saying, okay, if you are saying sourcing, then I'm telling you what are the official things that you need to measure, record, share, transparent. Okay. And it could also be like, many places the producers have an agreement for support till end of life of their products. It's an ownership that they take around with it. Disclose that. If you have human resources and policies around with it, they hire people. So I think human resource also telling about gender, telling about the mix. So no longer English is good enough for disclosure. Okay, we are not judging anyone. You might be 0 today. But tell us, 0 is becoming 10%, 0 is becoming 20% now. And it's not just a number. As a board member, I think I'm looking at policies, framework. I think for me, it's less about becoming people independent, and process driven, because we are organizations. So when I'm a company, when I'm an investor looking at companies, I want to see systems, I want to see processes, I want to see the orientation. And I think that's the emphasis for building some of these criteria along sustainability in the form of process. Now, just go to a simple thing is, how does government regulation further provide options? Because you are a manufacturer, you are a brand, you also need capital to do it. But I also want you to be sustainable. तुम बोलेगा ये सब करके खर्चा बढ़ता है. Okay. So today you hear about green bonds. Okay, green bonds by nature are debt securities, but for only that end use. You said about end user. But that's going to help India achieve progress towards its net zero goals. So the world is moving, the regulations are helping, instruments are coming. Now, some manufacturers who otherwise were not keen on investing in getting their processes updated, if they want to tap that line, will have no choice but to do it. So you're widening and making people inclusive, adopting, and doing it. Once people start doing it, they start to see the benefit of it. You need people to nudge around with it. You talked about IoT. You talked about manufacturing. I'm taking 2 examples, just relating to what you just talked about. So, in 5 years back, I visited a company, and many companies in manufacturing have daily workers coming in, job allocation which happens. There is production planning which does that. 15 machines, whether it is a stamping machine, sheet metal, or a metalworking machines. There is a job who allocates every day morning at 7 o'clock. You will go there, you will go there. This is your job sheet, worksheet. Your shift is of 8 hours. Okay, productivity wise, you only bill 5.5 hours, maybe 6, maybe 7 at best. I have not seen 7, but I'm just giving. And people will say this is the standard. So what did one company do around it? You have all the data about your talent and people as which people are. They created a tag, either on the wrist or on the neck. Okay. The tag has information about the worker, the capability, the team, and the allocation. When that person enters the gate, there is a reader. The reader reads it, and there is a flashing light, M1, simple. That person has to do nothing. Reading means that person is marked present. Okay, allocation is on the screen, M2, straight away that person goes to M2. Otherwise, he had to come, sign, register, verify, go inside, wait, chit chat, allocate, do. Okay, has it reduced the work? Of course, it has reduced the work. Okay, Is the job of the person who does this allocation become less important? Yes, probably, because that person feels I am not relevant now. So that person is the one not leading support for doing it. But you encourage people to see, oh, now you become manager, you can do 5 more things, incentivizing. A. Okay, the second part is the same tag. If you get too close to a operation, it should signal a warning. Safety is important, even in sustainability. A. The same tag, if there is a sensor which again locates that if I'm too low, it will flash on. All of this is data available on dashboards, which is what software provides. So I think thinking aloud, as you said, why am I doing what am I doing? And what is the board asking as our priority is something that investors do and want to do around. Last one point on that. And I think this is a mind problem. Okay. Everyone talks ESG. You heard words about CSR. You heard words about impact. In my view, these are all people using it and casting it as a function vertically. I think we just have to disband that vertical function thing and see that this is a horizontal capability. So if we make sustainability as a horizontal capability across the enterprise, you will start thinking from a sustenance, from a design point. I think that is the first step of value creation. And I think if you look at, I'll close out by the private investors loop around with it. So there are 4 parts normally to a private equity investment. It's pre-deal, deal, post-deal or holding and exit. So pre-deal is where now, because horizontal thinking has emerged in many places, there is ESG diligence. Financial accounting tax. ESG diligence means somebody is asking exactly for all of those things and saying, tell me no, tell me 0, but tell me. Somebody is doing that. It's no longer an option. Some places, of course, there are various functions within that, but people are asking. Second is how does one do post-investment? Okay, desire is to do a lot. Practically operationalizing it is difficult. So I would still say about 12 to 15% is my broad estimate as to where the industry has reached, where intent is always there, but actually getting to do things post help and everything is still happening. But I'll give you examples as how people are starting to do that. Pedigree funds, large private equity funds and multi-year, multi-decades, they've started putting out their impact reports every year. And impact reports, they classify and look at what have they done in their portfolio companies for things that they are monitoring. That's a choice that each one of us has. And that is something which I can look at it, whether it's a climate, whether I'm looking at, women's empowerment, whether I'm looking at safety. I can choose my to-dos and say, I am focused on this. That's the reason I'm investing. So every fund has a thesis. A part of that thesis has to be something to do with one of the SDG goals that you choose to align with. Okay? Once you do that, I think everyone is in a hurry. Okay, and the only language everyone understands is finance. So one of the challenges in the past was both were parallel tracks. Finance is a separate track. SDG, client, CSR, ESG is a separate track. I think the value creation opportunity is aligning and getting this together. And I think in my past funds that I managed around it, we created a weighted average score. We decide what weightage we need to give for business, finance, ESG around it. And the score is not, number is not important alone. Is the growth in the number and keeping on doing it better till it becomes a habit. So as I said, sustainability at the core is habit formation. Board needs to keep on saying, I'm not satisfied alone. I'm happy you're going, but either we follow benchmarks or become benchmarks. And I think value creation is this process today, which leads to simple, everyone looks at exit. That's the last part of a fund. Valuation, everyone wants. Valuation is a function of profits and margins. Now, if you put innovation, if you put workflow, if you save costs, if you get more energy, if you do the things I just said, automation, wouldn't your margins increase? So doing more with less. If you do more with less with a mindset and horizontal capability as a mind frame, you've already started creating a value creation cycle. If you document that and make it a process, I think you have it on the word to it. So I think sustainability at the core to me is something which comes from this and not just the table. Table is a good way to benchmark, and I think as all global aligned, we can always compare it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir. This is really thought-provoking when we look at it from this perspective. Yes, sustainability was always there. Everybody was trying to reduce the waste created by the manufacturing unit. Everybody was trying to be good to the environment, but a push from the structured framework-based statute along with the investor-driven added valuation has escalated the entire process. And I think now sustainability is no more option. It's more like a competitive advantage and value creation engine to look at. And thank you so much for these thought-provoking details. Moving on to our next panelist, Aarti is going to, we would like to understand more on sustainability as a disclosure and transparency module for the organizations and use.
Right.
Over to you.
So thank you so much. I guess we've covered two aspects or certain perspectives. So I'd just like to maybe pull in a little bit from what Samir just spoke about, is that one is it needs a long-term view. Sustainability is, though we are facing whatever we are, and it's very visual that we have to address climate change and act on it. So while we talk about that, we need to see where we are placed today. I mean, speaking from India, which is one of the largest democracies, and we have a vibrant demographic population, which is today working and adding value to our country. And this we cannot really pull our focus on because we are living in that, as we push through congested cities, it's all for the better because people are heading to work. People are getting there to get things done, right? So, I mean, when we are solving for that, one of the things that we do need to look at is that there is development that's happening. We see the kind of connectivity in every way, like say, mobile connectivity or, road connectivity, air connectivity. People are more connected through that. We see there is when we are looking at all these positives, I think we're even facing some growing pains. And these growing pains, I think we cannot trade off on the development part of it. So hence we would love to address something which is the sustainable development. You brought about SDGs, which is the focus for the next 5 years. After that, then you have the bigger focus, which is net zero. And when we talk about net zero, I think it is India has placed something as 2070, which is fair enough because there are so many layers to it that we need to really build into, right? So what I see is a challenge, and on another side, there's an opportunity for us, for all of us to contribute to it. So when you speak about transparency, right, I think that's where the digital part comes in. That in India, when we wanted to digitalize, we digitalized. Every aspect of it, how much ever you have a range of family members who might resist it, but be digitalized. So I think we've got this experience of how we are all getting more and more, digitally aware of connecting. So that's where transparency comes in. Is we can build transparency into every aspect of what we do. And this, for this large nation, will be one on the winning side, because that's what we will. So if you want to, particularly ask me in certain aspect of it, or does this cover?
So, usually the boards are kind of trying to balance this. Implementing sustainability in manufacturing is not easy. It involves a lot of costs, right?
Right.
And in the ever competitive market, when you are trying to kind of control your costs in one hand and then implement sustainability on the other, how do you look at implementation and balancing the two?
Right. So one is we have people, processes, and systems. So now one is when we are implementing any of the, say, reporting methodologies or monitoring, or to measure the impact of whatever that you have decided to measure in the process. Now let's take the first thing that comes to operating any business is the energy that you utilize. Right? So maybe you can begin by monitoring the energy. I think you brought out a beautiful example. This can be measured of the person who's digitally wearing a tag. So that's another way of looking at it. With regards to the, say, we have the talent, and then the technology. So if you look at data-driven technology, so if we talk about the business that we are in, which is into manufacturing electric buses, so we have something like onboard diagnostics. Now what this does is that it helps you measure the performance and highlight the predictive maintenance. So you don't have to move into, say, so digitally you get the warnings and you can study it. You have a dashboard on which you can measure it. So hence, these are methods in which you can bring about, digitally measuring the effectiveness of a process.
Very well said. I think in today's world, having innovative ways of implementing these techniques is what will keep you above the edge. Right. My next question is to you, Abbas. What steps or methods can traditional manufacturing setups take to become more flexible without disrupting current operations, whilst they opt for smart manufacturing technologies? So how do you put this?
How they become more flexible without disrupting
current businesses.
So here I also, I think, like Samir said, right, those tags, I will use an example again. It is a typical process where you are identifying, the biggest thing is to be able to identify roadblocks, right, to identify inefficiencies in the process. And if you can identify those inefficiencies, you can target which one, you can target the biggest one and go after it first. Then you target the middle one and you go after it, and that way that's a continuous process, because always there will be inefficiencies that come up. How do you do it without disrupting your current performance is something that is on a very case to case basis, like how you take it up. So if I was to say, I'll give you an example. So about many years ago, I think almost 5-7 years ago, we had this order from Hershey's. With every chocolate syrup, they wanted to give a little toy, and they wanted us to manufacture that toy for them. And they gave us a period of, say, 2 months in which they wanted 1 month to prepare and 1 month to manufacture the entire lot and give it to them. Because it was a short-term campaign that they wanted to run. And in that 1 month, they wanted 1 million pieces. So within a month, we had to upskill our, increase our production capacity by 1 million pieces, and which was much larger than what our regular monthly output was at that time. And in the next month, we had to implement it and get that done. It depends upon, once you have now, this is the target that I want to achieve. Whatever the target is, once you decide this is the target I want to achieve, you will be able to find ways of doing it. If somebody would have said in 2 months I want 10 million pieces, you would have figured a road for that also. So in this case, what we did was we identified all of the resources that are required. We did not want to sacrifice on our regular production cycle and everything. And in a very short period, we had a shed under which there was a lot of storage of material. We had an entirely new team that had come across who were going to help us. We had new machinery. We had to identify how long the machinery is going to take. We took that opportunity to also increase, like for example, if there's a mold, right? And the mold will require 3 months just to remove that kind of material, but you need only a month to produce it. It was a great opportunity for us to be able to say, okay, that's a point of inefficiency. We went and we realized creating a larger mold was very necessary. Creating a larger mold, again, like I mentioned, who is the vendor who could actually do that for us at that point? Like I mentioned, every type of an operation has a particular vendor who fits your needs in terms of time and capacity and quality. So we had to figure that out. We had to get manpower. I think our manpower in our factory had tripled for that 1 month. And we had to call them 10 days earlier so that the entire training could have been done. So I think major time should go into the planning of an operation like this. And you should have your top stakeholders inside the process all committed to the plan. So one big part of our problem that we had was even our suppliers, because not only we had to produce that much, our suppliers had to produce that much more. So we had to go in and get their buy-in into the whole thing. So the plan has to be solid. Every problem that can come up has to be anticipated, because still there are going to be problems that you have not anticipated that are going to come up, but at least the ones that you've anticipated are planned in advance. So if something goes wrong, you fix it like this. And get all of the stakeholders involved, because when there's a group of people who are committed to achieve a target, there's nothing that really can go that wrong that you can't achieve that. So I would say that getting the stakeholders involved is very, very important. All the machinery, the capital investment, all of that can come into play. And in a regular operation as a company like ours, if we are wanting to increase, we have a cost to benefit analysis always. We always identify how much would this cost to do this. And then once we understand that the future looks bright, 2 months of trouble, we will go and we will take that person.
That makes so much sense, when it's broken up into detailed, specific pointers that A, B, C. If you have this in plan and if it is started out in advance, I think the possibility of having your hurdles on the way reduces to quite some extent. So, yeah. Moving on to our next question. Samir, my question is for you. Efficiency, innovation, and investor trust. In your experience, which of these three benefits tends to show the earliest measurable impact for the organization?
So I think efficiency, innovation, and trust, you said.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think efficiency is an output measure. For that, you need to give inputs first. Okay. And I think when you interact with any company pre-investment, observe. Okay. I do something which is talk to stakeholders. So if I come and ask Huzefa or Abbas, manufacturing, who is your leadership team? I can ask Aarti. Aarti will say, I've got the best design head, best marketing, best R&D plan. Of course, they've got it. Are they the best? Are they sticking? Are they not sticking? You say, no, they are right with me, always. What do? Simple. I go to LinkedIn, look at all the people who have resigned from the place,
Speak to them. 50% people speak. So I do my diligence. So the question is, if my answer to what I find from that marries with Aarti or Abbas's answer, my trust starts to get built. If the trust doesn't come from that interaction itself, innovation efficiency might be there, I won't invest. So trust is the barometer for interaction and engaging with any partnerships. Innovation is something that brings up them into a cohort worth evaluating. But I would never do an investment in a company that might be the best company in the world. If I have no trust with them, there's no point. I've done the reverse also. People change. Times change. Situations change. What happens if everything has changed over a 5-year period and you are a long-term investor? Things happen. I did that. I found this. And this is the example that actually was done. 12 months later, I exited from it. Did I make lower money? Probably. Am I unhappy about it? Absolutely not. I may not be able to influence change in every place, but then it's my choice to continue to be there or not. And I think that's what I will do as an action. So trust always. Secondary parts are all there. Innovation is no longer a choice. It's a question of whether you are pushed into it or you lead with it. That's okay.
Okay. My next question is to how can leadership foster an ethical, purpose-driven culture that encourages teams across functions to adopt cleaner procedures?
In the situation we are in, wherein we are setting up a supply chain, we are also supporting a large MSME ecosystem that is moving into new technologies and new geographies, because we are in the business of energy transition. So as we take this group of supply chain, which is the MSMEs, we believe that communicating with them on the scale that we plan to achieve, right? So processes and building on ground, we see that a comfort and trust that we build as we communicate our growth plans helps them then achieve newer ways of working. So now if we say, let us get into, having renewable energy to power our plants. Now, access to that. One is there are methods in which you can get access to modular renewable energy through the grid. So if we can, as a group, give them access to this information, and we see that local industry bodies are providing this service. So they have an active MSME helpline, which we are then, sharing this information with them so that they can get real-time access to this industry helpline. So this is one way in which we can build on that.
So I think I can add one more example to what we said. Sustainability, people always think only on climate, water, which is important. But that's just one element out of it. I think there is also inclusiveness. And I think inclusiveness for manufacturing, there are different ways in which, all of it starts small, they become big, then they become large. But there is a mandate that if you source from SMEs, if you're doing it from some small vendors, helping them become long-term, you should disclose that. That's your participation in sustainability. The second example is what I've seen last 4 years is canteen. Everyone has it. Okay. Cost sales, everything comes along with it. Yeah. Okay. Campuses, university, everyone has it. Is there food waste? How can you look at food waste?
if you can know what to do, if you know what it is, and you will also find it in companies. Everyone has got canteen, but everyone goes down and has vada pav. What happens to that waste? So I think measuring, monitoring, and action around with it. A, if you look at it, if you spend probably 50,000, but you'll save a crore. That I think is, as you said, a cost benefit around areas of waste that you look at. I think that if you start this transparency there. So you also see everywhere, even Siemens data, as they say, na, every food that you waste or so many plates are wasted. Just put it there. It will be mindfully, people are going to look at it. That's transparency.
I can so much relate to this. So I think I've seen this in Kotak. Near their waste bin, they write that yesterday so many kgs of food was wasted and it could feed so many people. I mean, that statement, if you read it on a regular basis, it kind of impacts, creates an impact on your mindset. So this is so true. I mean, there are these kind of wastages that happen at every level.
So I just add one dimension to this amazing conversation we are having today is on the carbon accounting, which is the universal language for sustainability, which is coming our way maybe in a year or two at best. There is a progressive movement that has started globally. Oxford University has taken a lead in that. There are several other universities globally, including the Harvard University, etc. They've come out with superb white papers on debits and credits of carbon accounting. So just imagine that, if you have a mobile phone and one mobile phone has got a MRP, but another one has got a MRP plus the debit and credit of a carbon account on it. That one cost 1 lakh rupees and another cost 1,10,000 rupees. And the 10,000 rupees additionally disclosed for the carbon that is gone into producing that mobile phone. So that language is coming into effect very soon. There is consensus that is happening globally. So maybe in the balance sheets, on the MRPs, on the product labels, we will have, just as we have a GST tag, which is disclosed, we will have a carbon accounting disclosure on the label of the product, and which would match the debit and credit right from the source to the consumer. And it will traverse through the manufacturer. So it's going to be like a blockchain system. Like how we have a blockchain system that goes to the source and ensures integrity of data. So the carbon accounting system is going to be something similar on that. It's a distributed ledger system which will come our way and which will really create a lot of transparency around the entire subject of sustainability and will bring in the finance language, as Samir said, and maybe that will create a transformation all across.
I relate to this, Zenfa, and the reason is last year I was a mentor to a lady in Australia called Janet Salim. She runs a startup called Footprint Labs. She spent 17 years in United Nations, and she and her co-founder have built a system which is tech-driven, which allows that to happen. So your carbon accounting method. So if we say Samir has spent credit card statements, we get, but we don't know our credit card statements by carbon footprint.
Okay.
What if a software can tell you that? Can you then say, I have got credit, I have lost credit? Can I do that? So they have developed this, and the base for that data is United Nations because she's worked in that data environment. So the accounting part that you say, I think 100% it's coming. But like always, it probably may get adopted elsewhere first before it comes to India.
Yeah.
But maybe India might just lead it. Today, it's no longer time difference in terms of how it moves. But I'm glad this happened.
The global, lead currently lies with China on carbon accounting, surprisingly, because they are the manufacturing global. So all the leading companies that are outsourcing to China, and China has already created a harmonized classification structure product-wise. They created libraries for carbon accounting. So I think they have already taken the lead, but definitely I think once it sets in, as Aarti said, how we swiftly go towards digitalization of the country, like that, this will become like a revolution in India.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, coming back to the inputs and the outputs. So right now, because we are rapidly developing, our journey would be an interesting one to measure because you can access this framework, digitalize it, and like you said, people, technology, processes, if all of them were already inserted into this framework, then you're measuring your output and then you can easily derive it. So, yeah, technology
to kind of monitor something really precisely would really.
Yes.
And I think people are also ready for it. So earlier no, in India, there's in toys at least, there's this concept of if you got a large box, now people want to give a large box.
Yeah.
Because toys are bought as gifts. They want a big gift, you know. And as houses started becoming smaller, these large boxes started becoming difficult. And this was an insight that we got later. What happened was, even we used to put all our construction toys in these big boxes nicely in a tray and everything. So the packaging was much larger than what it had to be. But that was what the retailer wants, and the customer, the distributor wants, because the parent wants to show such a gift. But then, no, and I hated it because there was so many trays and corrugation and paper and so much material that it's just going for waste because you just open it and eventually it'll go in a small bag, everything else is thrown away. And eventually we did a kind of a campaign, you know, that no longer will we have big boxes, we are going to make all our boxes really small. And we did that campaign saying the space in your house is limited. Don't waste it on large boxes. So we are going to give you great value, but we are going to give it in small. And people loved it, you know, people really, really liked it. They appreciated it. We marketed it. We made it something because otherwise it becomes really difficult to combine an economic benefit with with this. So our costs also went down and we found that it worked out for them. So you have to find a small niches and then you communicate it well and then people, I think that's how behavior changes.
Super. I think communication articulation is, I think, as important as the measurement is. And I think once you start doing it, if neighbor does it, I can also.
And if you start streaming that behavior, then people tend to feel like, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the one who's buying it. I don't want to be the one who makes it.
I think it's a shift of mindset shift. Yeah.
So we've already crossed.
Okay.
So we'll take a question from one of the audiences. His question is, what is your word of caution for first-time entrepreneurs? What is the normal gestation period for a micro or small manufacturing group? What are the early indicators of successful or struggling manufacturing setup?
So I think who would like to take it from the panel?
So I can take a couple of them. I think the last one I'd like to take first, because it's a really, really nice question. What are the early indicators of successful or struggling manufacturing setup? This is something that I noticed when Stanford had come to India to do the state program. It's a non-profit situation. Okay, somebody's donated money to Stanford to organize this program. So when they come to India, even though it's a non-profit, their paper is a particular quality. The t-shirts, the pens, everything, they only use Sharpies. So they all use particular quality. It's a standard that they maintain. In India, what happens is when you want to do manufacturing, you want to buy a machinery, you'll think of the cost of the machinery. You don't realize that it needs padding, it needs the right kind of flooring, it needs the right accessories, all of those things. And usually when I go to a factory and the factory is in a very rundown shape, I realize that maintenance is a cost which is difficult for them to bring up.
Yeah.
They have not anticipated it as a part of their cost. They have not anticipated. These are the soft things, which no calculation. The first Excel that an entrepreneur makes will never include all of these things. And that's where you plunder when things happen. But over time, when you see these costs estimated well, now I realize, okay, this person has identified it well. So early indicators of a successful or struggling manufacturing setup is the condition of that manufacturing. If it's in a good condition, this person is kind of aware of that. That's how I would look at it.
Any thoughts from your side?
This is, I'll take the second one. What is the normal gestation period for a micro or a small manufacturing unit? Again, I would say that I I mean, we are working with micro and small manufacturing units as well. And one thing that you see is resilience. You know, if you have the inclination to build something, then you find the way to survive, build, live, and grow the business. So I mean, when you look at it, if you want to exist as a small or a micro manufacturing unit, it allows for it. I mean, it's like traveling in Mumbai and finding good street food and, you know, the best of whatever, you know, the cuisine that you would look for. And you would enjoy both of it and you find that it exists and coexists, you know. So I think a normal, that's one, it depends on what you plan for your growth. That's what I would say.
The first one is simple one. I think if everyone asks what's the reason why a company or a startup has failed, everyone will say they didn't get funding. That's the wrong answer. So I think most of the time, figure out whether there is a market for your product or a service. I think many times we're too happy being proven right too early. Just because we're sitting in Pedder Road or Bombay, if you ask 25 people around, oh, my product, they love it. Okay, but that's, I think, there is no market in Andheri. So then AJ had told outside. So I think product market validation is not based out of your office. And if it is not there, learn from the market. You might just have something better coming your way. And I think the difficult part for even first time more, is to let go. We always think, or 6 months more, it will happen. Okay, that's optimism. But sometimes that optimism, you also need somebody else to show the mirror or the reality that maybe this might work. So I think having and talking to some people around and getting really whether you should be doing that work, ask yourself that. Don't doubt, but I'm saying ask. Once you're clear, just go ahead with it. Don't worry about what 15 other people say, don't do this, don't do that. Don't listen, do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your time. So to summarize the entire session, I would look at it this way, that today's time is a very rapidly changing time, whether machinery from your tools, your machineries, to your investor mindset and your statute requirements, all are changing at the same time. And a recent study says that 70% of the manufacturers in India have already implemented Industry 4.0 tools and technologies. So, I mean, if you look at the stats, 70% of the manufacturing units have started implementing the new technologies. 65% of investors now factor sustainability and the capability of adapting to the changing era as a valuation model. And sustainability in itself, the reporting has reduced the water usage by 30% and wastage by 25% on a global standard. So these are very challenging and exciting times at the same time. And having insights from all distinguished speakers like you is very thought provoking and gives you a redirection on your dated processes and realigning them with your required timely processes. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you. Thank you, Abbas. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Aarti, for taking your valuable time today and bringing so many thoughtful insights on the table for our audience. I'd like to thank our audiences and all of you for the time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.